Hey, so thanks for the support once again. It's been another week, so wanted to talk and yap for a while about what's been going on. I guess I'll show off like the flashy, fun stuff first, rather than, yapping about the boring stuff up front. So I guess we can get right into it. I obviously have a gun in my hand, which is kind of cool. All that was super easy to do. I didn't make this. This was just from OpenGL. This sprite. Eventually, I plan on doing like Blender sort of models, but for now, I just wanted kind of a stand-in thing. So this thing it bobs based on movement and all that. It isn't super advanced. I plan on having it so that it kind of like moves up when you jump and like and then down when you hit the ground, sort of thing. There's obviously this bug, which I'll talk about in a moment, but there's also a lot of like movement stuff that I ended up doing this week with the wall jumping stuff like this. Is like there's some really cool movement tech that it's actually in the engine now, and it's actually pretty fun to play around with. But yeah, uh, it's pretty sick. Anyway, so yeah, you can change your velocity completely on walls now. You also get like so essentially you hit the ground and then you can do some tech where you just like get a jump boost like right next to walls by just pressing Shift and Q at the same time, which latches onto the wall and then jumps you off immediately, and you get the Z velocity boost, but you don't actually like have to stick to the wall. You can just jump straight off, so that's kind of like cool tech. But yeah, you can completely rotate your velocity depending on whatever movement key you press. Yeah, so I'm like a big fan of like skill-based movement systems. Like I spent like most of my teenage years like bunny hopping in Counter-Strike. So I'm like obsessed with that sort of stuff. So that's something that I really wanted to get right. And it feels super responsive and good. So I also added all this stuff. The gunshot sound is really not the best, but this is also kind of like copied from Counter Strike, right? The holes in the wall. I kind of like the fact that they're like painted on and offset it off just by like a little tiny bit. Um, that's but that's just like my preference, I guess. It also works on slopes, but for some reason, like I'll show you, it works on Y facing slopes, but on X facing slopes it doesn't work. So I have to figure out why that is. I think it's a problem with the normals because I keep on having to swap my X normals. I think it's like a winding issue with my coordinates or something. That happens sometimes. Anyway, what else cool can I show off before I get boring? So what did I do in the editor this week? Oh yeah, so I added radius to light, which is kind of cool. That's the reason why this is broken actually, is because they haven't really unified the system. So right now the radius literally just changes the light map coordinate and not actually the world space coordinate. The reason for that is kind of complicated, but there is probably a really simple way to unify the system. I think I'm going to work on fixing that today, but this was bound to break. It was kind of built on shoddy logic from the beginning, and now we're going to have kind of more arbitrary geometry, so it was bound to break anyway, so I have to fix that. But yeah, so the reason why is because I literally just scale the the actual light map coordinate rather than the 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 map that I check for occlusion, right? So even though we check for occlusion after, we aren't checking the exact same coordinate because the scaling is just confusing and annoying to do. But yeah, this is like a mathematical way that I can do it. It's just annoying when you have the way the lighting system works is that we have these like voxels, right? Like 12 by 12 by 12, right? So it's like annoying to have to scale everything by that. I don't really understand how I do it. It's kind of like trial and error, but it kind of works. So, oh yeah. So I didn't talk about something very interesting. Is this emitting from walls and floors that I have now? It's kind of cool. So, I guess I can yap for a little bit about the inspiration for this. Was like I was like at the beginning of this week, I just like took some time off from working on it, and I was like trying to figure out what I wanted to add next, and I looked up some scenes from Suspiria and Inferno just to get some like lighting ideas, because I love those films, and what ended up I ended up seeing this the opening of Suspiria, where it's like that checkerboard floor in that lobby, and it's like painted on pastel, like matted. I was like looking at that, and it just seemed like the light sources didn't even matter. Like the entire frame looks like a painting, in fact, and that's why it's so surreal and strange when the girl ends up walking up the staircase, because it literally looks like a painting, and then suddenly she starts interacting with it. And so I was like, maybe we shouldn't have light sources in some sense. And so I also looked at this scene from Inferno, the scene where, I believe it's the scene where she goes into the basement and she's like looking down into that pool, and it's like there's like this blue light that's coming from behind the camera, but you don't actually see where it emits from the floor. You only see its reflection on like the debris that's on top of the floor. And then there's this like orange reddish light on her, and it's like such an awesome shot. But anyway, I was like, well, the simplest way that I can think of, I don't really know how to actually make lighting like that, but I was like, what if we turned walls and floors into light sources just to experiment with what it looks like? And I think it turned out really cool. So as you can see, if I can get close to the ground here, there is a fog that's coming off of the floor, right? It's almost like it's emitting, right? Because basically iterate over in voxel space every single surface. It is kind of buggy with slope edges, which you can see here, these blue sorts of, that I have to figure out how to fix that. But I think the goal with this is to not obviously bake the whole map in it. The reason I am baking the whole map in it is because I don't really have a way of storing that data other than ones and zeros. For example, like, is this tile going to emit light or not? And then it would just look blocky and out of place. But so my goal later is to create some sort of maybe pattern, animation, movement, like the idea is for maybe it to be something that feels like it's moving underneath the floor and emitting light through it, or something like that. So something so like haunting and ghostly about like the movement of like the surreal sort of lighting in Argento's films that I really it's really unique, and something that I really wanted to to figure out how to replicate in the engine. And anyway, I'm going on an insane tangent here, but yeah, so I wanted to explore that, and so I took a day to explore it, and then ended up like this. So in the future, I'm gonna add like kind of like these ghostly patterns, I guess, that will be emitting this and moving around. Is kind of my goal in 2D, and I'm gonna have to kind of figure out how an efficient way to make 2D animation iterate over 3D space without it becoming really expensive. But yeah, so obviously walls are just red and floors are blue, but that's going to be arbitrary in the future, whatever colors you end up choosing. And this is hard coded in like pure red and pure blue, so that's why it looks kind of I really like the purple, but yeah. So that was that. And oh yeah, so collision works properly now. Well, not 100% properly, but much better than it was. And so I ended up figuring out like just going with holes. My realization I had with it was like, okay, maybe like I was like thinking about like how do I get like real elevation like in terms of like multiple floors in the future. And what I realized was like I don't even need a 3D map array, like I don't need to go full like Minecraft voxel with it. I could just literally store within each map cell just different holes, and just stack them, right? And then just raycast into them to determine which floor we're going to sample each frame. And so that is going to take maybe another week or two to really get like real elevation on multiple floors happening. But that's the plan, and I think it's going to work. So technically, I already have the infrastructure down with like a cell can have as many holes, right? And I've separated them into vertical wall holes and floor holes and ceiling holes. The ceiling holes don't have collision yet, which I need to work on next. But so yeah, essentially, if you had like a floor above this, it would have a ceiling hole on the bottom and then a floor hole on the top, and those might actually end up being the same coordinates if it's just like one thin slice, right? So then you apply the ceiling hole from the bottom and then the floor hole from the top. The annoying thing is how to determine when to apply the hole, especially if it happens in between frames. So there's like this Minkowski difference and the bounding box start and end point sort of thing that other developers do. Right now, I tried implementing it and it kind of broke things. So you could just, if you were going fast enough, you would get like clipped on edges and stuff. But currently, if you go super fast, you can just like go straight through the wall, because within one frame you'll go past the hole boundary. The reason why is because walls aren't complete holes anymore, which is a good thing because it's much more efficient and correct to only have a hole on the outside, right? Which is how we get all the slope logic to work, is that we just have a hole on the outside. Last week I went on a long tangent through the code about I was really just being stubborn, right? But I went through a long tangent on the code about how I was applying these normals, and now I just basically do that. I pre-compute that instead of doing that in real time. But what I was essentially doing was I was checking for every triangle near us if we should apply the collision or the sampling, based on the normal and based on our position. And instead now I just construct that on map load, and then like literally if we're just inside X and Y, then we just sample that. And it's like, I guess I was just being super stubborn with it because I had written all that code, and then I was like, I have to use it somehow, but it was just wrong. Well, not completely wrong. I was stubborn with it. Like, this bump that was happening before was, I was like, this has to be able to solve. This has to be able to solve. And I had like a solution in my mind, right? Which was like, you know, you define contiguous points and then all that. But and you know, I'm sure you guys can relate, like having a project in your mind where you have a solution, but you know that it's not an efficient solution, a scalable solution, and you're just kind of stuck, and you just like sit there and you're just like, I don't know what the solution is, but I just really needed to take some time off and then come back to it with a clearer head. And now, on initialization, all the vertical triangles just get extruded and end up being 4 points. So it's like boom, 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 you know? And then it just stores a plane value, which is which it uses to determine what you sample, but it stores that plane value by calculating the normal of the top edge, or in this case the hypotenuse. So all that works good. There is the issue with going through walls, and so that's kind of like a separate collision issue. You know, the holes work perfectly now, and now it's a matter of you know, designing like a bounding box thing that's not going to mess up the movement at all. So there's that. You do have to be going like a really fast speed. Like I have a debug button that like speeds me up. But yeah, you do have to be going like an insanely fast speed to clip through the walls, but still need to fix that. So yeah. Oh yeah, I did add enemies, which so the reason why I didn't go deep into adding enemy entities yet is because talk and work. Because once you start adding enemy entities and stuff, it's like they need pathing and stuff, and our geometry isn't even finalized, so like what's the point? So yeah, let me place this down and then change it to type 3, which is the ghost type. I haven't unified these systems yet, but I don't think that they should be. I just need a drop down with a title for this. But yeah, that just says enemy ghost essentially. This is HP 100. So see, it follows us around. It goes through walls because he doesn't go through walls anymore. Actually, he used to. I think our collision now stops him from. But the reason I chose a ghost was because the collision isn't done yet, and ghosts are supposed to go through walls. Anyway, that's cool. And yeah, I haven't really tested him on the slopes of the geometry yet, but yeah, so he essentially just like sticks to the floor. But I guess the nearest floor on these surfaces is the ceiling. So yeah, all of them just take 4 shots to kill. Just for testing purposes. So the annoying thing with that is that you're gonna add like a bunch of ghosts, right? Like I'll just add a few of them. And the annoying thing with this is that did I add? Oh yeah, I did. So you see, it isn't always choosing the frontmost one. And the reason for that is because their coordinates get so close in distance to the player. I already have a function that determines distance to the player from like the closest one that's hit. It basically iterates. The fire weapon logic is pretty simple. It's just a raycast, right? It goes to this position, you know, it finds whatever geometry it hits first, and then takes that position, and then it basically it sees if any entities were in this ray, and then it loops through all the entities' positions, and then calculates, you know, Euclidean distance to the player, and whichever one is closer is the one that's hit. Because without that, I was just like hitting them all at once. But the problem is, with the sprites right now, they get so close clumped together because of I don't actually have like entity collision, right? So yeah, so that's something that I'm gonna have to fix later. It's not really a now issue. Anyway, so that's that. The crosshair is cool, so that's a part of it. I like keeping it on in the editor as well. So you may notice that we aren't centered, which is really annoying and disorienting, and that's because I just added this entity placement stuff, and so once we go to an entity, it'll snap us to that coordinate. So you see now we're centered now because I don't have like an automatic centering code to snap us. So these guys are actually going to repopulate once I get out of the I'm just making sure to set them to not visible, because right now I don't actually have like a delete button for these ghosts, so now they're just invisibly chasing me, and that's kind of in the spirit of ghosts, right? So yeah, I need an entity delete button. But the next goal is going to be working on, stop playing with stuff. The next thing is going to be, I'm going to fix this. Oh my god. So the reason why is to test ghosts. I have I don't want to kill them again because I know the gunshot sound is pretty loud, so I'm just going to reload before I created them. Anyway, while that's happening, the next goal is going to be to fix that occlusion bug, which should be a pretty simple fix. I just have to figure out how to scale the coordinates. And then I'm going to work on the geometry, the making elevation and interpolating wall corners. All that stuff is possible now. It's just the second I add interpolating wall corners into the engine, it's actually going to make things like really annoying, because what's going to happen is that then our editor has to change. Like right now, just because it's top down, I can't really edit things properly. You know, I can only interpolate 4 corners, floor and ceiling. And once you start interpolating walls, I want to have it so that you could, you know, interpolate any point in it. And so that's gonna have to be like done from the editor side as well. So it's gonna be kind of a big project, and that is gonna break pretty much every like gameplay system. Like one basically, like, so many things are just determined, including the light occlusion is just like if the wall is solid, or, you know, whatever. So um, that's why, by the way, that's why this light goes through here. This light over here ends up over here is because we don't have actually occlusion for slopes, although you can't really tell, but yeah. So that's gonna have to be a lot of work, right? I plan on making this camera not top down anymore and making it actually just like, you know, you can free it and then roam it around and click on stuff. Right now, obviously, when I'm in entity placement mode, I can click and place an entity, so I have the logic to transfer my clicks to world coordinates already. I just need to basically make a no clip mode and unify it with like dragging selections for the editor, like you being able to do this. I don't even know if you can actually see my cursor, by the way. I don't think you can, but I'm doing like drag selections or whatever. Anyway, I'm gonna fix ceilings, and I really can't wait to have extra like elevation, right? So essentially what the struct looks like, I haven't really showed my code today, and it's because it's kind of in a bad state, but I can show, I am tabbed out here. I can show essentially what the map cell struct is looking like, if I can find it. Okay, just to give you an idea of what's going on here. Is that we have, so the stubborn thing for me was really accepting that triangles have to be separate from holes, you know? I think every programmer at some point just like, you just hate that the solution sometimes it's just like make another array. Like, I'm sure you guys can relate to that. Like, I hate that the solution sometimes is just make another array, but in this case, that's exactly the solution. The solution is we generate our collision triangles in one huge array at the beginning, and then we store indices to them, and then when we're iterating through the map to generate our actual holes, we use those indices to then cache our holes inside. So you need the triangles first, and all the points of the triangles and whatever polygon shapes we end up with to generate the holes. And it's just an efficiency thing, and that's just how it works. And it's something that you just have to accept, you know. It's I hate when the solution is just like abstract the data again into another array. Like, I like having the points all in one place, not having extra data lying around, because then you run into memory issues in C and stuff like that. So I don't like having like big structs, you know. But that's the way it is right now. So that's that. Also, this is super efficient because we don't have to query all the cells around us anymore. I just literally query the cell that I'm standing on, because when I generate the holes, they don't just get stored in one cell. They get stored in multiple cells. And so that we literally only query for floor height. We only query the current cell that you're standing on. And for collision, I just for vertical wall collisions, I just iterate only through the cells that your radius crosses. So for example, my radius crossed into that cell, and then just for safety, I check that cell. But technically, this wall is already in this cell, because as soon as a wall borders another cell, it gets put into both of them. Just for safety and for the future, like, when we start having maybe a wall at, at like 0.9, or, well, this would be 0.1, right? But you get the idea. Is like you want to be blocked by it even though you aren't in that cell. So yeah, I did spend the beginning of this week, like, I played a bit of Quake just to get my head right about the project, and I just ended up like getting my butt kicked on hard. So I don't know. I think I'm just getting old and I'm bad at video games. But yeah, that's where the project's at. I think these journal entries are pretty good to do. I've already looked back on them. Like, it's good to keep track of my thought process and all that. And so I just want to say thank you for watching and all that. And yeah, I think that's just about everything that I've done this week. I didn't write that much code this week. It was mostly just like spent in like experimentation with different systems, because I needed a break because the collision was kind of driving me up a wall. But yeah, I guess that's the end of the video. So thank you.